If you've met my mom already, just thank you.
I'd like to bring the meeting to an order, please. Town of Pittsburgh.
Sorry.
Board of we just started. Board of Commissioners regular meeting Monday, May 8th, 2017. I'd like to have a moment of silence, if you would, please. Keep it silent. Thank you. We would like to do the pledge now. We have a Boy Scout here, and we would like to ask him if he would come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
There are two, in fact. This is merit badge time.
You will come up here. Give the flag right here. Come up.
You too, John.
Both of you.
It's okay.
If everyone would stand for
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Now we need a motion to modify the agenda or accept it as it is.
I make a motion to accept the agenda as it is.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We need a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, or a motion to modify the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And that consent agenda included the minutes, approval of the minutes of April 24th, 2017 meeting, the sewer allocation request for East Cornwallis Road, and set the public hearing to hear comments on the proposed draft for the fiscal year 2017-2018 annual budget for the town of Pittsburgh. Next, we're going to have a ceremonial portion of our agenda, which is a resolution declaring International Compost Week. We'll receive this resolution from the North Carolina Cooperative Education, North Carolina State University, and it indicates to the Pittsburgh Mayor and Commissioners, we are writing to encourage the town of Pittsburgh to recognize International Compost Awareness Week. Compost has so many benefits. It reduces waste, improves soil quality, helps to grow healthy crops, reduces the need for fertilizers and pesticides, helps to reduce water use and improve water quality, and benefits the environment. Many local farms rely on the use of compost to produce high-quality crops and livestock as part of our local food system. Local nurseries and landscapers use compost to grow ornamental plants and install and maintain residential and commercial landscapes. Chatham County Cooperative Education, Polutanora Paradise Demonstration Garden in Pittsburgh utilizes compost to improve soil quality. Compost is a key component of community gardens and home gardens. Compost is an integral component of Chatham County agriculture and landscape in general. Our extensive educational programs consistently promote the use of compost. We usually recommend the addition of compost to new plantings to help ensure their success. Having the town of Pittsburgh recognize International Compost Awareness Week helps reinforce our educational message. With all the new development occurring in Pittsburgh, there are many opportunities to use compost and to benefit home landscapes, local communities, and agro-businesses. And this is sent from the agriculture agent, Deborah Rubin, and Charlotte Flynn, the horticulture agent, North Carolina State University. So composting, as you can see, is very, very important. We also have another one. This is just a letter, actually, from North Carolina Assistance in Customer Service Environmental Quality from the state of North Carolina, from John Montezuma, EIT Organics and Recycling Specialist, which basically is along the same line. And he is actually an environmental engineer, graduate from North Carolina State and Cal and Simone State, and he works for the State Recycling Program at North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. So composting is very, very important, and we certainly encourage you to compost as much as you can. Thank you so very much. We'll move on now to citizens' matters.
Can you put that to a vote? So I offered this as a resolution, if I may, a couple of things that I'll highlight. This is International Compost Awareness Week, and May 7th through the 13th. And what I'm asking is that the Town Commission recognize and declare this week to be International Compost Awareness Week in Pittsboro. The reasons that I would highlight and emphasize, Mayor Pro Tem Baldwin, you have wonderfully presented the issue, but I would also emphasize that we have representatives of 2 commercial composters here in Chatham County with us this evening, and so I think they would demonstrate that composting is about jobs. It's also about reducing how much we put in landfills, and it's also about improving our soil, and perhaps more importantly, helping to reduce stormwater runoff and reduce erosion and sedimentation, and improving water quality in general. When we use compost, we can do all of those things. And the thing that I would highlight, as you read, Extension Agent Debbie Roos, who is famous nationally, certainly, but here in Chatham County especially, she says, with all the new development occurring in Pittsboro, there are many opportunities to use compost to benefit home landscapes, local communities, and agribusinesses. And so I offer this declaration and would ask if there is support for this resolution.
For the resolution, I'd also be interested if they feel comfortable, if the businesses that are here could talk about what they offer the community. Would you feel comfortable?
Well, we have both signed up to speak.
Okay, that's good. I think that'd be interesting for people to know what you offer.
May we move that from
Absolutely.
Citizens Matters to now?
Okay. Come on, please.
Okay, no order? Okay.
That'll be fine.
I do have a bag of compost, since we're talking about compost. I know John knows what this looks like, but just to kind of reiterate the importance of compost in general, is it here? Or, I've never
Yes,
mentioned it.
that's perfect.
Okay. In a tiny little teaspoon of this compost, there are billions of microorganisms, and these are the type of microorganisms that help to replenish the landscape, all the microorganisms that are responsible for extracting the nutrients from the soil and giving those to the plants. All of this material is in the compost. If you look at that compost underneath the microscope, you will see a lot of bacterial activity in the form of both bacterial as well as some fungal strains, and as well as humic and fulvic acids, which are very important about the glues that help hold soils together. We got started, we were a dairy farm before in Chatham County in Dalston, and after we got out of the dairy farm business, we started hauling and finally found our niche in composting. So we were incorporated in 1990, and then were able to obtain the first level 3 state permitted compost facility in North Carolina back in, I think it was the mid-90s. So we've been supplying this area with compost for a long time. A lot of our compost is in the Pollinator Paradise Garden that David Roos has at Chatham Marketplace, as well as some of the foremost and premier organic farms and sustainable farms, not just here in Chatham County, but all throughout central North Carolina. And the importance of compost to especially a small farmer or a beginning farmer is simply being able to pick up the phone and order a truckload, which is actually quite unusual for certain parts of the country. In the past, decades, we've had a lot of people to move in from other areas to start small farms here in central North Carolina because the atmosphere with the local food movement, the Carolina Farm Stewardship Association, we're lifetime members for a reason because we do plan on continuing to supply compost to all of these farmers, and especially the new and beginning farmers. But it's actually pretty important that these farmers continue to have this source of compost that is readily available as well as affordable. With new developments in Pittsburgh, I would recommend that there is some type of way that you guys can help promote the new businesses moving in to be able to separate out the organic fraction, mainly if it's a restaurant or some type of dining facility, separate out that organic fraction, which will be the food waste, and instead of sending it to the landfill where it creates all sorts of problems, send it to a composter. And you have two of the largest compost facilities right here in Chatham County, so there's really no excuse. It makes a lot of sense both for growing small farms as well as the landscapes that will be created both existing and brand new. And like I said, to be able to pick up the phone and order large amounts of compost is really helpful for both landscapers and farmers. So I would encourage going forward to really think about this with new development in the area. But I'll do that. I'll let you. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
That there, tell me what that one is comprised of. Is that food?
This is actually for the organic farmers in the area. So this is wood waste or mulch, leaves. We do have eggshells in here. I'm trying to think, a little bit of food waste. So this is for certified organic farmers. We have several different types of blends of compost, but one thing that a commercial composter is able to do is completely diversify the amount of biological activity in this product simply from adding so many different materials, which often you can't do in a normal farm or a backyard compost bin.
Thank you.
Okay.
I can give you a card. I appreciate information about your
Okay,
company.
We also have on our website, and John, I'll be more than happy to send you this, but we do have a Vimeo page, and we've got several videos up there. One of them highlights our work in Orange County, and just would probably better showcase the way that different landscapers, farmers, businesses, as well as county government and local towns work with us to be able to increase the production of the landscapes around them.
So what is your website?
BrooksContractors.com. I'll certainly send John a link.
And Amy, if I may ask also, so your company collects from the back doors of many businesses to produce food waste, is that correct?
About 200.
And what is that like in a facility that hasn't planned to have space for that collection equipment?
It's we actually, believe it or not, there are a lot of businesses in North Carolina that don't even recycle properly. So it's quite a strain to be able to come into these facilities and try to somehow make room where really there is none at the back of the docks of these different restaurants and facilities. So it's imperative to.
What's it like for those who have permits to have a separate place for a dumpster for food waste?
It's a breeze. I mean, we do, it would be like a normal trash collection. It's just as simple as that. You come in and pick it up, you're not in and out.
And you pick it up at the end of the day or early the next morning?
We generally recommend a 3-day week pickup. So for some areas, that's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Some areas, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. generally that's good enough to get those organics in and out, because one of the things that is so smelly at an area where you have a lot of garbage and recycling is actually the organic fraction. So if we can get this out of the regular dumpsters, it's much less strain, even for waste management type companies where you have a landfill transfer station. It drastically reduces the odor and mess at those facilities.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Kaufman, would you like to speak?
Yes. Thank you. My name is Steve Cochran. I live at 217 Hillsborough Street here in Pittsburgh. I work for McGill Environmental Systems, a commercial compost operation here in Chatham County. As a member of the U.S. Compost Council, I appreciate this opportunity to talk about the benefits of compost. I'm also very pleased, as a Pittsburgh resident, that the board has made the resolution recognizing Compost Week. I think it's a great step forward for this area. I've had the experience of seeing firsthand the many advantages of using compost on farmland, golf courses, sports fields, residential and commercial land in my career as a farmer and commercial composter. As Pittsburgh and Chatham County are in the process of planning for growth, I can think of no better time than now to lay a good foundation of healthy soils with the use of compost as a major contributor. Anyone here in this room who's dug into Chatham County soil can recognize the need for amending our clay and sandy soils with compost. Amending our soils with compost has many benefits. The organic matter contained in compost can help retain moisture, thus reducing and preserving our water supplies. Compost can also provide key macro and micronutrients and increase microbial activity, leading to a healthy and productive soil. Compost also opens up clay soils for better drainage and helps to close sandy soils, preventing water from leaching away too quickly. As the coming growth happens, more and more resources, such as our water supply, will be used and taxed. The use of compost on residential and commercial land can be an important tool in using this natural resource wisely. Also, the use of compost on agricultural land will have an enormous benefit in producing food for a growing population on fewer and fewer acres. Many parts of the country that have faced very similar development issues have recognized the need for resource management, have incorporated compost use in their initiatives, best management practices, and even local ordinances. Denver, Colorado is one such community that requires the use of compost on all planted areas prior to the setting of a water meter. Tacoma, Washington is another example. They've become the nation's leader in the number of urban farms with compost as an essential component of these gardens. These are examples of forward-thinking officials managing natural resources effectively. I would urge the board and other planning officials to consider the use of compost in initiatives, best management practices, and ordinances being currently addressed in our community regarding development. The compost industry stands ready and willing to assist in any way we can with these initiatives. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Coughlin?
Yes.
Your facility is in New Hill?
Yes, yes, yes it is.
And where do you obtain your feedstocks?
We draw from approximately about a 100-mile radius of our plant. We have a plant in Sampson County also, and trucking distances dictate that about 100 miles is what's economically feasible to pull material.
And do you obtain any feedstocks from town?
Currently, we do not. We're certainly willing and anxious to do business with the town, We've done a small amount of business with the county, their water treatment plant, but certainly are willing and excited to see growth coming that will make more food stocks.
And I know a little bit about your facility. I know that it's special in a unique way. I think maybe unique in the state, commercial seal, is that right?
Yes, we're a Type 4 facility, and we're an all-indoor facility, which is weather independent. Our process takes place under a 3-acre roof in a building, so we take weather out of the mix.
And the fact that it's static pile and forced air?
Yes, we use the aerated static pile method, which gives us a very consistent product. Each batch coming out is very predictable, so we know what our product's going to be.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your service, and thanks for the products that you make.
Thank you. I thank
You have
the
that
town.
website too?
Yes, it's McGillCompost.com.
Steve, you have that on your yard?
Yes, I do. Okay. And if you'd like to come help on my grass, you're
My kids were potty trained on composting.
Oh.
All the vegetables went in there, everything. I won't talk about what else. Beautiful soil.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank
Cox.
you, Mr. Howard.
Thank you. Next, we have other public expression speakers, Mr. Oakley Bennett. And thank you for your consideration of allowing them to go before you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Board of Commissioners, governors of the fine town, and all the people here. My name is Oakley Bennett. I live at 314 Chatham Forest Drive. I'm the chaplain for the VFW post, Jill Wagner, 7313. And what I'm here for, the commander couldn't be here. He had to go to a funeral for another veteran. But what I'm here for is to invite everyone, the commissioners, Mayor Pro Tem, to our ceremony. What we're doing is we're dedicating a new memorial. I'm sure you all have seen it in front of the VFW. It's a big granite that represents all the services. We also have what's called a walk of honor. It's where we sell pavers to veterans and family members who want to have the veteran's name put on it and information. But it's at 4 o'clock. There'll be a short ceremony, and then there'll be food afterwards. But anyway, I'm here to invite everybody to that ceremony if you'd like to come. Thank you very much.
So that's open to the public as well?
That's the event.
It's open to the public as well?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's open to anybody who wants to come. And of course, you'll see flyers around that like this around town and businesses and whatnot. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Randolph Bowler, please. Oh, go ahead. I'm
No,
sorry.
we're still in public. Right?
Yes.
Mayor Baldwin, I'll let yield to Liz Cohen to go.
Okay.
No, I'm past. Go.
Seems as you have a skeleton crew tonight. Although I think Mayor Perry was feeling very well yesterday, and I hope she should be back soon. I'm just here to address the board on a couple quick items. One, at the last meeting, in reviewing your minutes, there was a discussion point about East Cornwallis Street. And in going through my records, I found, and I presented to Mayor Baldwin before the meeting, Potterstone Village HOA actually presented to the town November of 2013 a petition signed by well over 50 of their residents asking the town to look into this, and made a presentation to the town, which I thought, given that this is coming up and development will probably occur down there, it should give you the backing for finding ways to get that paved. I would also like to add that you might be able to find, as you're getting into your budget season, many, many years, and Mayor Baldwin will remember this, when we were on the board of the fairgrounds, we got a budget item approved to extend or pave the road over there probably about 8 years ago, which has never been done, and the fairgrounds didn't want to do it, if you recall, Pam. So there probably is extra money sitting that's been allocated at one time for paving operations that have never been done. As an aside, we also allocated a sewer tap to get to that sewer, which one day, if they ever want to get to it, the town approved that as well many years ago. So I would just prefer this to send on to staff who has this from 4 years ago probably, but this would be before Mr. Jones got here. But this has all the information from that neighborhood about why they wanted it paved and their thoughts on it. It cites the fact that I met with them as mayor, and we did present to them, and Mayor Baldwin will remember this, when we did the 3M project and tore up that road and put in the reuse water line that goes to 3M that comes from our sewer plant, we were told by Hobbs and Upchurch that there would be funds at the end to pave this road. But as usually happens in projects, you get to the end and you find out there were unexpected costs, and after many, many years, it turned out we got to the end, and those went to pay for engineering fees for hydrostructures, Hobbs and Upchurch, and those funds did not get expended, and I know you remember that, Pam. So this has been something that's been kind of on the plate for years, and I would just direct folks, if you're new to the board, just to take a look at this. Second item has to do with a conversation I had with Commissioner Bonnets a while back, which I thought was a great idea. I notice you're probably going to have at your next meeting a presentation from your Additional Elements Committee. And as that committee gets to the point where it's winding down, I think it would probably serve the board well to have that committee perhaps stay intact, maybe work with the chair and the vice chair of the committee to see who wants to stay on the committee and do some other things for the town that would fall into that purview or connected to helping the planning board. I know your chair, Mr. Nass, is here, and he could say whether he thinks it's a good idea, but it appears to me that things like an annexation study that we've talked about for years could be done by them, especially because you're going to be annexing Chatham Park, but also some of these donut holes that are all over town, and other items that you might want them to look at that could be valuable for you while you have this excellent board of seasoned people that is working well with the town. The last item I wanted to bring up has to do with a resolution that we brought to the county commissioners about expanding their board. And I'm bringing this to you because Mayor Perry and I talked about this privately. In the past, the last time that we did a county referendum, which was liquor by the drink, it was the town of Pittsboro that actually sent the letter by request of their chair, Chairman Lassier, to put it on the ballot. If the county is thinking about this, expanding their board because we're increasing in population, it's going to be very difficult with Chatham Park and what's happening up in Mans Chapel and Briar Chapel to have balanced districts. When we only do a census every 10 years, you're going to consistently have a problem with not having one woman, one man, one vote, where districts like, for instance, Karen Howard's District 1 is already way out of balance. And so one method of handling it is having at-large members to their board. And that would, I think, be something that the town should be interested in, because a lot of this population increase is going to occur up and down the 15501 corridor. And if you think about it, the last member to the county commissioners that was a resident of Pittsboro or even the ETJ was who? Your mother, Betty Wilson. That's the last time somebody, and that was 1998, nearly 20 years ago. So if the county board is going to consider this, and they probably would end up putting it on as a referendum for the citizens to decide, so the citizens don't want it, it's democracy in action, but I do think it would be helpful if the town were to say, write a letter to them and say you support such a notion, because most of this growth is going to occur between Briar Chapel and Pittsboro. And this may not have anything to do with any of us here now, but I can see a time 15 years from now where these districts are going to consistently be out of whack. And it probably would behoove us to think now than trying to react to it in 2025. So my call for action there would be for this board to have a discussion and authorize your mayor to send a letter to the county or appear before the county and say that you would support such a notion. We've already gone over there, presented resolutions, and we're going to follow up again, but I think it would be wise for this board to weigh in. Again, the last time we did that was for liquor by the drink, and I don't think anyone is too unhappy about having good restaurants in this county and having Mr. Nass come here tonight and present a check, because we actually make money at the ABC board. In the past, we did not. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, former Mayor Bowles. Ms. Cullington, were you going to speak?
No, I'm
You did?
good.
Okay.
Calm down.
And I can't, the first name, Edmund? Mr.
Doug
Edmund?
Evans?
Yes.
My handwriting is pretty atrocious, so I apologize. So good evening. My name is Doug Evans. I live at 114 Autumn Chase in Pittsburgh. I just wanted to share some comments from my perspective, which may not be complete, so I'll apologize in advance if that's the case, but on Chatham Park. And it's based on having served the last 6 months, October through March, on the town additional elements committee on Jim and others. So there were about 12 of us that served in this committee. We met, I think it was every other Wednesday evening for about 2 hours. Commissioner Blanes probably knows as well because he attended almost every meeting with us. And we met for about 6 months. And we reviewed all 12 additional elements that Chatham Park had put forth. We made recommendations, the first set of 4 back in November, the second set of 4 in January, and the third set of 4 in March. I just wanted to make an observation that from my perspective, having served in that committee, I was honored to be asked, and I felt very positive based on the discussions we had, and I felt the committee worked well in providing some candid and pretty forthright feedback in terms of what we felt was balanced, fair opinions on things that could be taken by the planning board and the town board for discussion with Chatham Park. As I've looked at some of the meeting minutes for the last few town board meetings, it looks like this has come up a few times, but really hasn't had an opportunity to be discussed by the board. And I'm a little puzzled why, since we offered our first set of recommendations back in November, that it's now May, and even the first set of 4 hasn't yet been discussed, much less moved on in terms of recommendations. I don't live within the town limits. I live outside the town limits, so I don't vote. But I also look at, the ability of a board like yourselves to lead in terms of a project like Chatham Park, which is the largest project that I think Pittsburgh will ever see, and most likely one of the largest projects we'll ever see in Chatham County. And in my way of thinking, I believe Chatham Park represents a major opportunity for us to do some good things. And the leadership of this town in guiding that and feeling a sense of urgency that goes with it is, I think, critical to our ability to get out in front of it. Because as we discussed in the last 4 elements, as we talked about public facilities, the need for us as a town and a county to staff up and provide adequate resource to deal with what I expect is going to be a whole host of additional paperwork coming through as more and more things are proposed is paramount to the success of this overall partnership between the town and Preston Development. And so I'm speaking as a private citizen. I also serve on the board of the EDC in full disclosure, but I just feel that this is very important, and I would urge you to make this a priority because I think it's one that will come back and bite us collectively if we don't. So, those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Evans. Thank you. thank everyone for their public expression comments. We always want to hear from the public, so anytime you have something to bring to our attention or to discuss with us, we're more than willing to hear you, and basically, we appreciate your time and your efforts to be here. So let's move forward with our old business. I'm sorry.
Let's vote on the resolution. Do members wish me to read the resolution?
You can read the resolution.
Okay,
and then
all right,
we'll
I didn't want to belabor it.
All right.
This is a resolution declaring International Compost Awareness Week to be May 7th through the 13th this year. Whereas the U.S. Composting Council Research and Education Foundation, along with Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom, have declared the first week of May to be the International Composting Awareness Week. Whereas Pittsburgh and surrounding Chatham County are home to numerous farms and individual householders who compost on farm or in their backyard, and two of our state's largest commercial composters are nearby. Whereas composting is a way of returning organic resources to the soil in order to conserve water during extreme drought or flooding conditions, to reduce water consumption and non-point pollution, and to decrease dependence on chemical fertilizers and reduce erosion. Whereas composting is an effective form of waste reduction, reuse, and recycling, and since organic materials make up approximately 30% of the material going into landfills, composting is becoming one of the best methods communities use to reach waste diversion goals. Whereas materials such as yard trimmings, vegetable cuttings, biosolids, food scraps, manures, wood chips, and agricultural residues have all been composted and converted into a beneficial product known as compost. Whereas communities, through their land developers, local governments, highway departments, soil conservation service and extension offices, and public works professionals can have significant impact on clean water, soil building, climate change, and landfill diversion by using compost for projects. Whereas individual citizens and householders, by composting their grass clippings, autumn leaves, and other yard waste in their backyard, can reduce costs imposed by curbside collection while also keeping valuable nutrients, micronutrients, and minerals on their land and in the soil where they are needed to grow healthy gardens and lawns. Whereas composting creates green jobs and infrastructure for communities who implement composting programs. Whereas International Compost Awareness Week is an educational effort to showcase compost production and demonstrate compost use. And whereas this year's theme, Compost, Healthy Soil, Healthy Food, was selected to highlight the importance of compost in clean, plentiful water and healthy soil and improved agricultural production. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Pittsboro Board of Commissioners, in recognition of the efforts of compost councils, extension agents, soil conservation stewards, householders, landscapers, farmers, recyclers, public workers, composters, gardeners, and plant growers everywhere, hereby declare the week of May 7th through 13th, 2017, as International Compost Awareness Week in the town of Pittsboro, North Carolina. Adopted this the 8th day of May 2017. And I'll make a motion that we approve this resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so very much. We appreciate
you.
Actually, before we go on to old business, there are some commissioner updates. Does anyone have any? Anyone have any updates? Commissioners? Okay. Okay. Well, I have one from Triangle J Council of Government. I spoke last Wednesday, and I'm just going to pass you all the recommended budget for Triangle J and a general overview of the different programs with Triangle J. And their recommended budget is $13,167,275. So this will show each commissioner what actually Triangle J is sort of all about, the budget process, and just give you a good general overview, just an FYI more so.
Talk about
any other updates, Commissioners? If not, then we'll move on to old business, agency updates, Mr. Knapp.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Commissioners, I'm pleased to be here and give you a quarterly update on the ABC board and pass some money to the town. So on behalf of Ned Kelly and Hugh Harrington and the other members of the board, we're continuing to do well. Year to date, we're still doing better than last year by 4 to 5%, both in sales at the store and in terms of mixed beverages. Mixed beverage is always an indicator of how well our restaurants are doing, and as they continue to increase buying mixed beverages from us, it shows that they're continuing to expand their businesses a bit as well. And I think, as I mentioned to you before, mixed beverages are also more profitable for the ABC board. I wanted to pass on to you a couple of items. One, if you've been to the store recently, you may have noticed the new uniforms that we have put into place in order to try to develop consistency in appearance. And so we've gone with a polo shirt and khakis and a very simple fits for ABC on here that gives a sense of professionalism, and the employees love it and our customers seem to love it from what we've heard so far. We'll pass on that we renewed as a board our effort to support the peer-to-peer program that's in place at Northwood High School in conjunction with Chatham Drug Free. We're sponsoring that effort, and the principal at Northwood has asked it to be extended for another year, and in fact has recommended to Chatham Drug Free that they talk with Horton Middle School about taking that same program down to that level. And we've indicated that should they pursue that, we'll consider support of that as well. We also met with the state Talk It Out people for a bit, and became familiar with kind of resources and some of the things that are going on in other places around the state. And I think we're going to be able to tap into some free resources from that group here in town and perhaps do some things, particularly you mentioned Summerfest. In conjunction, we're thinking about going ahead and doing a booth for alcohol education, underage drinking at Summerfest, and maybe even getting the state to bring in their Batmobile as a draw in that regard. I want to let you know that we're in the middle of our budgeting process as well. We've come up with a preliminary, or in the works of preliminary budget, and we'll look at that at our meeting in May, and we'll schedule a public hearing on June 22nd, and then adopt that budget as we go forward. I wanted to give you a sense of the amount of support, or the amount of checks that have been given by the ABC board to the town during this fiscal year. And as you know, we do a quarterly distribution, and the fourth quarterly distribution doesn't get distributed in actual fact until quarter one of the next year, because that check isn't prepared until the end of that fiscal year. So I just want to let you know that during checks that have been given to the town for this fiscal year up to now amount to $85,715 for the town and $4,808 for law enforcement, for a total of $90,523 in total. That's the fourth quarter distribution in the first 3 quarters of this year. Plus, if you remember, we for 2 years now have had the arrangement where we get to keep 60% of our money in working capital that's over that we're allowed to keep without your approval, and we distribute 40%. But that 60% goes into a fund to plan for our future growth as new things come on board. So with that said, tonight I have checks for you in the amount of $9,048 to the town and $945 for law enforcement. So we'd like to take any questions or comments or suggestions.
Mr. Nuss, thank you so much for your presentation. It's really wonderful work that you and the staff are doing, and I especially appreciate the resources and the effort that you're dedicating to education and outreach on drug awareness, alcohol awareness. And I think that I've heard in the past that there's some policy that fines you or directs you to focus on alcohol. But I just would like to again express the hope that wherever possible, efforts can be made to broaden the education to drug awareness. I've been recently made aware, again, of some great misfortunes and sadness in our town because of the impacts of drugs. And I know that the efforts you're making are effective, and I just hope we can spread that awareness into multiple chemicals.
Thank you. And the program that we are sponsoring at Northwood, in fact, does that. It is part of it's alcohol, but a big part of it is drugs. And you know that this effort came out of some tragedy at Northwood that led all of us to think what we could do better. We've also been exploring the whole notion of how do we get our hands around fetal alcohol syndrome, which affects such a huge number of people and children, and we've got a very difficult time in trying to figure out how to get our hands around it. And so we're going to schedule some additional meetings with the state people to see whether there's some suggestions on how we can get through that. And but it's a tough thing in the store. I mean, our clerks don't like to sell when they in that regard, but they really can't say no. So we're trying to figure out some new tools that we might be able to give them to help out as well.
Thank you, sir.
Because it's a serious issue.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nash.
Okay. Madam Mayor Pro Tem, can I approach and give you these checks?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. Nash, I like the idea of you thinking going over to Morton.
Yes.
I think that's a great idea.
We think we need to go there, and quite frankly, all the literature I'm reading, all the people I'm talking to say we should actually be in Bisbro Elementary.
Thank you so much. Let's move on with our annexation request. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We have the final action on an annexation request along East Cornwallis Street. It's for approximately 3.25 acres, and the public hearing was held on April 24th. We're here to answer any questions or for you to adopt the ordinance approving the annexation.
Questions from the board?
I don't have any questions, just a comment. I read it somewhere and I've overlooked it. But is it not correct that the annex, that one property has to have a home or a house built on it within 1 year?
That may have been for the allocation request, and we typically tie allocation requests to a building permit or a site plan moving forward. And that's what the allocation request.
And that's still in effect, right?
Yep.
Any additional questions? Not, then we would need to adopt the ordinance, so we would need a motion.
I move to approve the annexation request A 2017-02, East Cornwallis Street.
Second motion.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you for it.
Thank you so much. Let's move forward with the next annexation request. Windstar Properties, Ms. Victoria Bay. Thank you.
Thank you. Windstar Properties has proposed the annexation of 0.82 acres located along NC Highway 87 bypass. This is adjacent to the current town limit. A public hearing was held on April 24th, 2016. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from the board? If There are none, then if we would need a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Make a motion that we accept the proposed annexation of A-2017-03 to Windstar property.
I second that motion. Oh.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And all opposed, there are none. Thank you so much. Next, we'll move forward with the rezoning request.
This is rezoning REZ 2017-02. Chatham County has proposed to rezone 57 Camp Drive from R10 high-density residential to O&I office and institutional. This parcel is approximately 0.65 acres. It was previously zoned R12 in the late 1980s and early 1990s, but was rezoned to R10 prior to 2004. The future land use plan has designated this property for traditional neighborhood, and the surrounding properties are zoned R10 to the north and to the west, and the properties to the south and to the east are zoned O&I. Staff finds this property to be in a suitable location for office and institutional, as it is positioned between properties currently zoned for high-density residential and office and institutional. Due to the property's compatibility with the surrounding uses and the proposal's consistency with the future land use plan, staff is recommending approval. A public hearing was held on April 24th, 2017. The Planning Board considered this rezoning at their meeting on May 1st, 2017. The Board found the proposed amendment to be consistent with the future land use plan and voted unanimously to recommend approval of the request. Any questions?
Questions from the board? Concerns? There are
I
none.
believe the gentleman from the county, he let us know that that was pretty much just going to be parking. Is that correct? That they had no intention of building anything at this time?
At this time, that's their intention.
So we're going to look at saving that large oak tree there.
Did he make any more mention of the oak tree?
He mentioned that, it's in their best interest to keep the budget low, and if they don't have to move a huge tree to create the parking spaces that they need, then they're not interested in it. They would do their best to work with.
I'll share a few comments and thoughts in support of the rezoning request. Initially, I was not very enthusiastic about this request. I had concerns about what I think may be a subjective element of whether or not this is in line with our zoning, our land use plan. The planning board found that it was in line with the land use plan. It seemed to me that adding parking may or may not be, but I was reassured by Dan LaMontagne's comments, a fellow from the county, that a significant objective was to take down what is essentially a nuisance, that old and unmaintained residence on the property. And I think eliminating a nuisance is probably in the public good, and I believe them when they say that they really need the parking. So I'm in support of the rezoning request.
It does mix it for several offices on that street already. So.
Any additional comments, concerns? If not, there would need to be a resolution adopted with the consistency statement first. We will make a motion to
Make a
adopt.
motion that we adopt a resolution adopting the consistency statement.
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? There are none. And the next, we would need a motion amending the ordinance, amending a zoning ordinance.
make a motion that we adopt the ordinance, including the coding ordinance for new zoning request REZ-207-02 for 57 Cape Drive.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. We don't have any new business, so let's move forward to the manager's update on projects.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. You have the memo in front of you. Just a few items of note. Would like to discuss in workshop format. We're kind of overdue for that. Some of the utility infrastructure issues that we have pending with regard to the Sanford Force Main, particularly the Chatham Park financial agreement, and then also to do a workshop format to kind of flush out some of the issues involved with the NPDES discharge permit and reclamation facility. So we're kind of getting short on dates between now and when we kind of wrap up the first half of the year. So I will evaluate whether or not we're going to be able to do some of that discussion on the 22nd, of this month, which already seems like it's going to be a pretty busy agenda, or whether we can push that to the first meeting in June, or alternatively have some other workshop format on a special date. So if you have any thoughts on that, please let me know, and maybe copy the board on what those thoughts would be. I'll evaluate what our next agenda is going to look like. Actually, our next two agendas are going to look like, and see if there's some way we can fit that discussion in. Water and sewer master plan. You'll recall from our winter retreat, we talked about the need for future identifying future infrastructure, particularly water and sewer needs. It appears as if we have the makings of a master plan that will be cooperative with Chatham County and identify some of those longer term needs. We are able to do this work, I think, the way we want to do it, in that we're going to be able to coordinate with the county, and then also kind of use the economy of scale to get the cost of the study down to a minimum. This certainly, as you can see from the budget that I'm going to hand out here in a minute, we're going to be spending a lot of time, money, and effort on conducting and completing, and then executing planning documents that are associated with growth in some way. So this piece is moving forward. Additional elements you'll have during the 22nd meeting, Mr. Nass from the Additional Elements Subcommittee talking about the last four elements and presenting that. And then with regard to affordable housing coming up this week, I believe Mayor Pro Tem is going to be attending that meeting as well. Chatham County Housing Committee will be meeting later on, I guess on Thursday, Senior Center in Siler City. Say that 3 times. But we'll be, I think this meeting kind of fine-tuning some goals, strategies, measurements, identifying some funding, looking at some land possibilities, and then we're going to be finalizing the report in July. So all that keeps happening. I will distribute to you tonight a copy of the first version of the budget. You have on the cover the budget message, and then attached to that is the budget document, which includes the ordinance, and then getting deeper into it, the line items for the budget. We earlier in this meeting set a public hearing for June 12th, as required by statute. I would, if possible, try to present any updates, and then maybe present some more detail on the budget at our next meeting on the 22nd. Again, if you wish to hold a workshop and discuss this and kind of get into the weeds of it, we can certainly do that as well. So I think I think what we have this year is generally some good news. We do have some growth, but also we have to spend a bit of money as well. The size of the general fund is down a little bit, simply due to the fact that we didn't borrow money compared to last year for some capital items. So the budget looks a little bit smaller, but it's certainly no less ambitious. It makes investments in staff, makes a few relatively minor capital improvements to kind of keep the current machine going. And as I said earlier, begins to invest in planning and kind of the R&D piece on how we move forward in terms of infrastructure and community. So, again, more to come with that. I do appreciate the opportunity to submit this budget to you, and as you look at this, please feel free to let me know if you have any questions or concerns. I'd be more than happy to sit down with you offline on it if you'd like as well. The budget will be placed online tomorrow on the website and then also available in our lobby as well. So with that, I will tap out and open it up for any questions, concerns, or directives that you guys might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brusack. Thank you.
Brian, I have one concern with the Sanford Force Main, and no disrespect to Mr. Royal, but I feel real strongly that we should have some representation from hydrostructure in these meetings on this reclamation facility and the Sanford Force Main. I'm real strong that we need a utilities engineer involved in this. I've said it several times and it hasn't gone anywhere. I'd really like some support from the board on this.
Well, as we discussed at the winter meetings, one of the things that, and you'll see it reflected in this budget, one of the things that I am budgeting for is additional money for plan review and for engineering support, whether that's from hydrostructures or whether that's from somewhere else. So the thing is hydrostructures will tell you they don't do sewer, they don't do force main. But at the same time, we do have opportunity, I think, to bring someone, either hydrostructures on certain review projects or someone else in to kind of help with that. Mr. Royal isn't taking the lead on the force main project. That's by and large being done by the Wooten Company. Mm-hmm. Mr. Poteet is actually going to be point on the project in terms of the design and particularly construction. Fred is kind of coming in on a few things when we get to the point of assembling. For instance, any shape for easements, things of that nature, then Fred will pitch in and lend a hand with that too. So we have plenty of hands on deck, I think, with that force main project. We can take another look at it and see where else we might be able to add to it. We probably are going to be looking at, whether it's hydrostructures or whether it's someone else, we'll probably be looking at adding to our team for inspections as that moves forward. So when the shovels actually get into the ground, then we'll be looking at making sure that we don't just have one person inspecting, that we have enough people inspecting the different parts of the project to make sure that what goes in the ground is built to our specifications and standards, and we create a record of it so we know where everything is. So I definitely heard what you guys were saying at the winter retreat loud and clear, and we tried to budget for that, add some more help and more support to that. I think I'd be tickled to look for a way to find whether it's hydrostructures or whether it's somebody else, to kind of add some assistance and support. And as I've told you before, I agree with your assessment of it, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little bit kind of lean to local people and local businesses or taxpayers right here in town. So I think we really need to. They've been working in the town here for 25 years or more. Whether it's some personal differences or, with them, they need to be out of the way. We're all working here for the town. What's the best for the town? That's all I got about that.
I actually agree. If there's a place for hydrostructures to do in reference to this, I strongly would like for them to be included in that. And we've worked with hydrostructures for a long time. They give us good work. So if there would be any way, yes, to include them, I'd certainly be in favor of that.
we should have some money through Chatham Park for these expenses too, right?
We'll be spending that money as well. That's
Right,
correct.
okay.
From my understanding, I'm in support of it as well, Mr. Griesbeck. My understanding is that what hydrostructures can bring is really a tremendous depth of knowledge and kind of an institutional memory in many cases. Maybe not specific to sewer engineering, but to the overall system. So I encourage it as well.
Especially if we end up doing the gray water.
Yeah, I'm again, we keep coming back to this, and I don't want to belabor the point, but the perception that we don't contract with hydrostructures for anything, I think, is not accurate. We do quite a bit of work with them. We'll continue to do work with them, and that's certainly not an issue. And I agree with everything that's been said by the board tonight. I think on the Force Main project may not be the best example of what they can bring to the table, but sure, absolutely. If they're local and we can work with them, we'll try to figure out a way to do it.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
No, that's okay.
Sure. So, Mr. Griesbeck, would very much appreciate an update on the electric vehicle charging infrastructure.
Well, as I said to you in the email today, there isn't much to update with. So I look forward to providing more information on that, getting into it as we go forward.
Okay. So, by the next meeting, could you please have a schedule for us? I'd just like to know what's the timeline.
I'll do my best.
That'd be great. And if there's any contract implications, I'd like to.
Could you expand on that?
Well, I'm understanding that Duke has a contract, and we would have to approve that contract. I think that's what, reading back in minutes from many months ago, and actually in one of your updates, it said that you would be bringing us a contract for consideration. So we haven't seen that, and just want to make sure we're not missing the opportunity. And again, if there's any way that I can be of assistance in channeling resources from my new workplace, I'm happy to do that.
Well, be careful what you ask for. This might push you to work on it.
How about it?
All right.
Let's see. So, that's not the notes too. Do other commissioners have concerns?
I don't really have a concern, but you were talking about possibly having a workshop on the budget.
Yeah, I had kind of left that open at this point because our schedules are pretty well. Our next couple meetings, for instance, on the 22nd, you can see that there are a few things that we have on the agenda for the 22nd. I don't think there's really time for a workshop necessarily. The meeting on June 12th is the public hearing, and we can certainly do something more in-depth on June 12th if all else fails. Because as of right now, that agenda is looking good. If you wish to do something for that or for Chatham Park, then please let me know. I can certainly, if you guys have an availability in terms of time and date between now and then, that's fine. If not, then I'll just try to work something in on June 12th. So it's not, you don't have to make this decision tonight. We can kind of maybe circle back with this after the meeting, email or something.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a full bench here tonight. So.
That would be good. You posed that question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tempore Baldwin, I would also appreciate some opportunity to dig in on the budget. I'm not sure about how we would go about scheduling that, but the thing that is concerning me more, and I wish that I had occasion and more time to dig into would be the, I think that it's the question of the financial guarantee agreement with Chatham Park. And I think that there is a tie-in here. In our package we received from Mr. Jones regarding the small area plan, there was a set of financial projections in there. And I'm guessing that will be informative in general to a lot of our considerations. Probably not so much about the 2017-2018 budget, but in terms of our concerns about keeping a good fiscal house in order into the future. And I think there's an interplay there with the discussion of financial guarantees. I don't know quite how to put a bow on that mouthful, but I guess I'll just ask, are any other commissioners or mayor concerned about possible implications of financial flows going forward to pay for the sewer main?
I guess we would hear more from that in this meeting here with Davenport.
On June 12th. Is it?
I think it's going to be rescheduled, right?
Well, we originally planned on doing it on the 8th, and then we started having people gone for meetings, and so we couldn't do it then. So if all else fails, I'm going to try to do something by June 12th, or on June 12th. So, and yes, that's exactly the sort of thing that we would be looking at, is that the financial guarantee would actually take a look at not only how Chatham Park guarantees their portion of the payments on the revolving fund loan, but also the flows that would be used to help make the payments on the capacity charge for the Sanford agreement. So those are the things that we kind of want to break down, and we haven't. I mean, we were doing a little bit of that when we were entering into the Sanford agreement. We haven't really had a chance to do it with regards to this specific agreement with Chatham Park. So yeah, if we can do that on the 12th, that'd be great. If we can find a way to do it earlier than that, I'd be open to it. But I don't think we're going to be able to nail that date down if we do a different date other than the 12th. I don't think we're going to be able to nail that down tonight, just with
question about your report regarding potential master planning of utilities in collaboration with county and other municipalities. I really like that idea a lot. I think it'd be great to have that kind of coordination, especially because of the potential and I hope future of cooperation between the governments. I will just ask a little bit about the estimated cost of Pittsburgh's share. In speaking with a fellow at Owasso, I got the impression that that level of master planning, decades of master planning for both combination of water and sewer, might be in the area of $1 million. Now, clearly that's for Orange Water and Sewer Authority. But it makes me wonder if the scope is what I'm expecting it to be. Can you just maybe touch on that a little bit more about?
I'm not really familiar with what you're talking about with regard to Owasso, so could you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so so the kind of master planning that I would hope that we, in my dreams, we would have it in hand right now, would have indicated to us where the next sewer treatment plant ought to be built, and that would be wherever this Chatham build on and operate facility should be located. I haven't seen any documentation or reporting on that. Again, I'll make the request that I'd like to see documentation or reporting from town staff or from Chatham Park as to how they settled on Eubanks. I would also, and this is the more important thing because that's kind of bug dust, I would also like to see in that level of master planning thought put into a future in which drinking water resources are so scarce that we perhaps have moved past the logjam of the legislature and are able to clean up our reuse water to the point where it can be drinking water. Thinking in terms of a resource master plan rather than separate utility, water master plan, sewer master plan. I'd also very much like to see thought put into rigorous energy efficiency in the planning, possibly renewable energy resources in the treatment and disposal of our waste. Backups for drinking water.
I think that's all very good input. Again, I'm not really sure what Owasso was dealing with. The total cost of the master plan that we're contemplating with the county and with some of the other communities is in the area of $105,000, $110,000. Our portion of it would be about $6,600 based on our rate of the population. Certainly the things that you're concerned about maybe are things that we could look to plug into the plan as we move forward. Some of your concerns about the Eubanks Road facility and the location and how that goes in addition to the workshop that we were having this past fall. I think the next workshop that we would have where we talk about the Eubanks Road facility probably will answer a lot of, or at least try to answer a lot of your questions about some of those issues. But what we're looking at doing with this master plan with the county is to tackle future water and sewer needs and how we would go about tackling it. And it could very well incorporate a lot of those things that you just mentioned in terms of sustainability and using alternate forms of technology and contemplating worst case scenarios and things like that. That's exactly what I think that plan should be doing. So
wonderful. That's great. Is there any chance that Tetra Tech is in consideration?
I'm not sure yet. I don't know. I would have to double back with the county and find out who they're directing the RFQ to and how we go about it. But I'm sure we'll be a partner in this along the way. So
wonderful. Well, I've heard very good things about them, in particular with regard to their awareness and expertise in kind of cutting edge, but their mastery of the proven technologies and systems. So I hope that they will be given consideration. I think, with better than, with so much of our territory soon to become Chatham Park, a serious, environmentally superior community, I think it's really important that we incorporate that into our planning, incorporate that kind of vision into our planning as well. So, and a question on that share, you said it was based on population. Is that projected population or current?
Current population. In projected population, we'd be paying a lot more, so they were nice to us.
Yeah, that's great. All right, I'd very much like to see some high-level scoping information on that as well. That'd be
Do my
great.
best.
Thank you. And my final concern, I need to check one thing before I give the statement, but no. Never mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Bond. Thank you, Mr. Bruceback. Let me ask you one more question about the water and sewer master plan. When are you all expected to meet? First meeting? Have any ideas?
When we're expected to meet,
To do your first meeting?
I'm not aware of any meetings yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll let you know when I find out.
All right. Thank you. Any additional questions, concerns for Mr. Bruceback? If not, let's move
I got
on.
one more.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, but had a couple people today come by and Shorty, I meant to mention it to you earlier, but the Thompson Street parking from the first Sunday, people were parking from Elizabeth's Pizza down to the community building on the right-hand side. I did get a couple of people that wasn't too happy about that. I don't know where they, it did get down to one lane. There is no parking sign on that side of the street. But
Yes.
it was several cars parked all the way down the community building on the right-hand side of one of them. And just one other thing that was brought to my attention, the plant down there on the Pittsburgh Moncure Road, a gentleman asked me, is it, I told him I was pretty sure it was, but possibly reuse water getting in down there. And I'm pretty sure that's something he even mentioned. I know Mr. Baker was the one mentioning they may be interested in putting like a distribution where you can fill trucks and all that from the
Yeah, that's something we've talked to them about. We'll try to figure out a way to do it.
Okay.
I was just going to mention that I believe Chief Crutchfield's mother has been very ill. I don't know the details of that, just something to keep in our thoughts.
I don't have anything additional to add to that. But any other concerns, commissioners? Ms. Bruceback, any concerns for us?
I think I'm all concerned out. The budget, well, I'll be glad with this. Yeah, I tapped out already, but I'll be glad. We'll just continue plugging away on this budget.
All right.
And again, if you have any issues or if you notice anything, please feel free to get a hold of me. Don't hesitate.
Thank you. So if there's nothing else, then we need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All in favor? All in favor? Thank you.
Yeah.